I figured it was only a matter of time before the media became obsessed with Barack Obama's admitted drug use. This weekend, the New York Times stirred the pot with a front-page non-story about the issue. The Times spent a lot of resources investigating, talking to more than 36 friends, and this is their grand conclusion. Mr. Obama's account of his younger self and drugs significantly differs from the recollections of others who did not recall his drug use. That could suggest he was so private about his usage that few people were aware of it, that the memories of those who knew him decades ago are fuzzy or rosier out of a desire to protect him, or that he added some writerly touches in his memoir to make the challenges he overcame seem more dramatic. So the Times found out not much, but still managed to suggest that Obama may have purposefully overstated his drug use to offer a better contrast to his later successes. In his 442-page book, Obama devoted about a page and a half to using drugs as a student. He wrote, quote, "Pot had helped and booze and maybe a little blow when you could afford it. Junkie pothead, that's where I'd been headed. The final fatal role of the young would-be black man." Any article about his drug use is bad news for Obama. But for the Times to claim deceitful motives just because they couldn't find anyone to corroborate his youthful indiscretion is the ultimate in media arrogance. And sadly, I predict this story will be just the first in a series of non-stories about his drug use. Joining me now, MSNBC.com media analyst Steve Adubato, and back with us is Michelle Cottle, a senior editor from The New Republic. Steve, this article's an outrage.
No, I don't think it is.
Really?
No,
you
not
think
at
it's
all.
fair to suggest that maybe Barack Obama exaggerated his drug use because the New York Times couldn't find anyone to corroborate it?
The New York Times and everyone else in the media is trying to find a way to be as unfair to Barack Obama as they are to every other candidate. What do I mean by that? George Bush's military record, Al Gore's son, whether he had a drug problem or not, or alcohol when he got in an accident.
Just to tell me that it's not as bad as other people, tell me how you can possibly justify the New York Times putting this sort of non-story on the front page of the paper.
Because it's about his background, because he said it publicly in a book, because they're questioning the authenticity, an interesting word here, as to whether he's accurate or not.
But based on what?
By talking to other people.
Wait.
They do it with every presidential candidate, Dan.
But they're saying, he's saying he did it. I mean, usually
they didn't say they did it. They said they asked the question as to whether he did it.
And because the New York...
I'm sorry, guys, I got to jump in here. Do you understand how through the looking glass this is? We're sitting here arguing about whether Barack Obama exaggerated being a druggie for political gain? That's just twisted.
I agree with you, Mr. I completely agree with you. And I think this is, I mean, apart from the absurdity of it, it's also just horrible journalism. Because they went out, and because in their arrogance, they couldn't find anyone to corroborate it. Well, you know what that must mean? It must mean that they should suggest that maybe Barack Obama lied.
In fact, in this story, Dan, as it goes on, as a negative story about Barack Obama, half the stuff is positive, that the people they talked to said he was studious, he worked hard. Yeah, he may have done a little pot, maybe cocaine, drank a little bit.
Right.
My point is this. There's tremendous pressure on the Times and everyone else, maybe on the Times because they lean to the left, to do a story like this. And here's the good part. Even if you think they're going overboard, Barack Obama, they're playing catch-up with him, meaning they need to do some stories on him that are tough, that are negative, even if they're unfair.
Look, fine, do tough stories. But once you investigate his drug use and your conclusion is, we didn't find a whole lot.
Which they said.
You pull it off the front page. You don't say, we're going to keep it on the front page of the paper. Why? Oh, I don't know, because we're going to speculate now that he lied to suggest that he overstated his drug use.
By the way, it's not for political reasons. It's potentially...
It's not political reasons. It's just bad journalism.
Potentially, the argument is that he did it for literary reasons to sell books.
Go ahead,
If you're
Michelle.
in the Obama campaign, though, you need to whip this out if you make it to the general election when Republicans start talking about
and
this.
You
just go back to the Times and you say, look, they searched me and they found virtually nothing. You know, there's your drug story.
But he's admitting it. I mean, this is a guy who's come forward and said, I'd done cocaine. I was smoking pot. He's not denying it, and it's as if everyone wants to play gotcha and say, but we've shown that... what did we show? We showed that maybe... he didn't do as much as he said.
Dan, it's not unique to Barack Obama. Listen, if we're going to...
I haven't seen a story about another candidate that's been this crazy, and I compliment Michelle in saying through the looking glass. I mean, this is totally
I am saying
backwards.
that there are a series of stories across the board, including John Kerry, and whether he fought and did what he did in the war, whether he should have gotten... they're not substantive as it relates to someone running for president. I'm saying the line has been crossed a long time ago into people's personal lives.
That's just throwing up the... Look, I'm not... Look, Michelle...
I think the media, though, has a responsibility to go ahead and get everything out there.
Agreed.
Because this is the Republicans are going to throw everything they've got at him unless the Clintons do it ahead of time.
And real unfair stuff.
People want to see if he can take a hit. So, as far
exactly.
as this goes, we're doing him a favor.
And Michelle, I expect that the media is going to spend a lot of time in the general election if Barack Obama were to win, that they would spend a lot of time focusing on this drug use issue at the request of his opponent.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, drug use, whether or not everybody likes to raise their eyebrows and say, oh, everybody did it, or Bill Clinton did it, or, George W. Bush was young and foolish.
This is like, excuse me for interrupting, but this is like all the work that was done in the media, and we could say it was unfair about Bill Clinton and his womanizing. How is it any different?
I'll tell you how it's different. How's it different? I'll tell you. Because it would be like Bill Clinton coming out and saying, I was womanizing. And
you weren't really.
And the New York Times doing a front page story that says, we haven't been able to corroborate.
But if that were the case, then it would have gone away. Dan, if this is the case, then it'll go away.
That's fine. But anyway, this is just shame on the New York Times and Steve, I got to wrap it up. Michelle Cottle, thanks a lot to you as well. I appreciate it.
Thank you.